Change. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Hayley. What a joy it is for me to see you.
Always.
Um, and then and in between thinking about what I'd like to talk about.
And
And I don't know.
there's so much.
Oh, there is. But I did get a question from somebody who loves the program. Uh, and it is, how did you how did you qualify yourself to give uh, direction to others? Was there something in between Wall Street and what you now, or uh, so is it life experience that enables you to counsel others? Can you dive into that one?
Yeah, happily. So, I don't know where to start there. So originally, when I left Wall Street and my official qualifications are in business administration, marketing, and obviously my career experience was in finance. And when I left finance, it was very much to um, be a consultant and using my experience throughout the career to advise and consult entrepreneurs. However, when I was doing that, they were asking more life questions. And how did you make these decisions? And where are you now with them? And how did you sort of get to that? What's your process for that? And it sort of turned into more life coaching. I wasn't charging them for that because I considered that very different from what I was qualified for.
Uh-huh.
So it took, one of my mentors was like, you're charging people for that, right? And I was like, no, you don't charge for helping people.
Yeah.
And he was very much like, no, that is helping people make decisions in their lives. You charge for that.
Yeah.
That was sort of a big sort of step up for me to kind of sit with, all right, if I'm going to charge people, I have to have official qualifications. And I sat with that because I personally, in my experience of living my life and the help that I have received that actually changed my life, all came from people that had life experience. And so I looked into different avenues of getting qualified, and I did not agree with any one of those avenues. I had more questions than answers. And, in my research till then, I haven't found anything that I feel comfortable saying is my official qualification. I don't call myself a coach. I don't call myself a doctor. I don't call myself a therapist because I don't fit in any of those boxes. I've also to this day, and probably for the rest of the year, will not get certified or licensed because I don't believe in those modalities of healing and of qualification. I have done my research, I have done my due diligence, and I find them to be lacking for how I live life and for what people come to me for. So I won't be qualified at this moment. Something could change in a year. I don't know. But at the moment, I won't be seeking any kind of qualification or license. I very much like to say I'm none of that. However, that still begs an answer to the question, what qualifies you to speak to other people? My life experience. People come to me because I've lived it. I'm a human being that has, gone through it and figured out a way and found shortcuts. So people are coming to me for how I did it. They're not coming to me for what's in a textbook. When it comes to sort of the energy reading on that way, to this day, I don't think that there is any way of qualifying or licensing anybody in that modality because I do believe it's unique. I believe the way that you read energy, Brian, is very much unique to Brian. And anybody that resonates with that is going to resonate with Brian, not with your qualification or a letter that 2 million other people have.
Yep. Yep.
So I
So
believe people
what,
that come to me resonate with the way that I speak, the resonate that I see things.
um, so you don't identify yourself as a coach or a therapist. What word do you use, or do you use a word?
I use 4 words:
Okay.
a healer, a teacher, a speaker, and a seer.
And and can I this let's play 20 questions.
Yeah, go for it.
How many people call you on in a week? How many times do you work with somebody or people in general? How many
Yeah,
clients?
a comfortable week for me where I have energy is 6 to 10 people in a week.
6 to 10 people.
Yeah.
That's 6 to 10 hours.
6 to 10 hours face to face.
Uh,
But there is texting and emailing in between. So for all of my sessions, there's sort of the way that I work is my specific way. So once a client becomes a client, they have access to me through text and through email. So if
yeah.
they're having any questions or, before a session and they think of a question, they text me and I respond. If they have questions post session where they kind of sit with the session and then like a day afterwards, they're like, here are my questions. They have access to me. So, that 1 hour is possibly 2 to 3 hours per client per week.
Yeah, I have always encouraged, invited members of the audience or the people who brought me in to feel totally comfortable contacting me. I never about my phone number because, I hate talking on the phone. Not that it's not that I don't feel I'm good on the phone. It's just when it rings, I'm doing something else, and I think I don't recognize the name, I don't recognize the number, so I'm going to leave it. If they leave a voicemail, I'll call them back. But just to share with you too, I got certified as a sexuality educator, many, many, many years ago. And you're supposed to update that. You're supposed to get recertified, and I've never done that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like you that my awareness from my reading and my talking to others and my life experiences qualified me, especially given the feedback I was given on a regular basis, qualified me to be a counselor and not a life coach, but it is about more energy. What's going to bring you happiness? Where are you going to go with that? How do you want to be identified when you die? What's the most important thing you think you've done? Questions like that, even over coffee. I don't charge, anything. But I just, if I do a program, even a Zoom, which I did for the University of Maine a couple of days ago, I want people to get in touch if they have any issues. And I feel like I'm qualified to talk about gender. I've done it for years and years and studied and have lots of personal friends who have helped educate me. So I feel confident that I can talk about that. Although I do think that if a company called and asked me to come in and talk about gender, I would say, no, you need to have somebody who is, transgender or non-binary, because
actually experienced it.
Absolutely. They have to hear from them. They have to see a face to go with the issue. So can I go on with my questions?
I wanted to add to that, I think 2 parts to that. The people that come to me for
Yeah.
what I offer have typically fallen out of the licensed certified help.
Oh,
So they're coming to me specifically because I'm not part of that round.
uh-huh.
So that's the first point. And the second point is, when it took me a long time to get comfortable with what I'm doing because I had that mindset that I couldn't help people without qualification. And it took me a good year to get comfortable with, okay, I don't want to be called a coach. I'm okay being a mentor. I don't want to be
Mm,
called a therapist. I don't want to be called a life coach. None of that.
uh-huh.
It took me a long time to find words that I was comfortable with, and they're words, they're not just one word. But I also sat with myself and, said, if I'm going to do this, it has to be 100% my way. So I chose the words. I chose how I want to interact with my clients. So they have access to me. They can text me, they can email me. If it's a phone call, that's paid. They can contact me whenever they want, specifically because when I started this work, I never wanted somebody to feel alone. And I never wanted somebody to feel like they couldn't get help because of money. So I'm always accessible to my clients and I offer that sliding scale based on circumstances because those are the two conditions.
Hayley, on your website, uh, you identify yourself as clairvoyant, and Claire everything else.
I consider myself a seer.
Okay, so do you use that word with your clients, or have you ever had anyone come to you just for that?
I have had people come to me just for that. And very often it changes. So they'll come to me because they're struggling with a death and they want me to connect to the other side. The session changes.
Mm,
So, they come to me for that, but ultimately it ends up being a session about them, not about that other person. Um,
right.
so, I do read energy and, I admit I read energy. I can see it, I can feel it, but I don't put myself out there as this is what I do. I'm a fortune teller or I'm a medium. I don't call myself a medium. I don't call myself a channel either, just because those words just aren't my words. But if other people use them to explain what I do or they're their words for what I do, they're more than welcome to. I'm happy for them to use those words because they're their words. That's what helps them to explain things, and that's how they see it.
I I feel that I can also uh, read energy, and that I'm able to say about myself that I'm an empath, that I have a gift of empathy, where I understand the feelings that they have at a deep level. Don't hang a shingle, but often have coffee with people, who initially just want to meet me. And then we get into, what's your life about? And, are you happy with it? I've had a great conversation yesterday with a friend. And, we go deep. It's not superficial. Uh, uh, so Hayley, um, talk, if you would, about uh, your experience of separation from your family. You've talked about it in the past, and I've never pushed you on it. I've just acknowledged that it's happened. But um, you know, you you and I know I got an email from your dad wanting me to somehow bridge the difference. Uh, and my counsel was, write a letter without, uh, those target words, those, landmines, that basically asks in a loving way, what happened, and give her a chance to to say what happened. And so he didn't take my advice, but what happened?
Um, I think I don't know how far to go back. I think sort of the crux of what happened and how the separation started was me changing. You know, it was broiled into that whole apocalypse of life change where I, within one or two, no, probably, yeah, within 2 years, I got extremely sick with Lyme disease. And following the Lyme disease, that was sort of like, that started changing things without me even having much control. Things were just changing. And it was for me to sort of keep up with the change and sort of make decisions as they were changing. So, once I came back from the Lyme disease, I just saw things differently. I saw how I was putting in an enormous amount of effort, an enormous amount of energy, and not receiving anything back. It was expected, it was an obligation.
Mhm.
And I noticed that when I was that sick, there was very little, do you need anything? Or it was more, when are you going to get back?
How old were you?
I was 36, 34,
30?
34, 36 when
Uh-huh.
when I started to see that. And I started sort of rebelling against that. Yes, I rebelled against it. And I very much started saying, like, I'm not available. And that first happened sort of with my husband at the time, where I was just like, I'm not doing what I usually do this weekend. Or I can't keep up with this. I need to figure out a way to make my life easier and not just your life easier. So that was the first kind of thing that started changing, was the marriage, because I was like, started saying, I need to take care of myself now. Um, and then within that, sort of, I started getting more and more involved in sort of who I was and why are these things happening to me? And really going into, okay, why was I getting sick? Why am I feeling this way? And, my initial lean was into sort of spirituality and Buddhism. It went into religion at that point. I started studying Islam. So I started just opening my mind and just really seeking a lot of information as to why is this happening? Why is this that I supposedly have my life together and stuff together and everything? I feel like I'm falling apart. It was in that learning that I started to see that I had it all wrong from the beginning. My motivations were all opposite. So that
Meaning that they were for other people.
it was always for other people, and my value was always in them asking for more. If people asked for more, I felt valuable.
Mm-hmm.
If I was stressed because I was giving so much to people, that then I felt like I was doing a good job. If I was, working, if I could say that I worked 60 hours this week and I did this and I did that, I felt like that was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So I started seeing how that wasn't sort of the best way for me and not really aligned to me. So there were just these small changes. So, first of all, there was the marriage that broke down, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And primarily that was because I said to him, I need to move back to the city, because at the time we were working in Manhattan, but living about 2 hours outside of Manhattan and traveling every day, commuting. And that commute was killing me. So I said, I'm moving back to the weeks. During the week, I'll be in Manhattan. On the weekends, I'll come home and we'll see how things go. I moved 100% by myself. He didn't help at all. And I took that as a sign that this is the end. So that was sort of the first sort of break. And when I told my family that that was what's happening, they were all like, oh, we saw this coming because there's a culture difference there. My husband at the time was half Dominican. So they were like, you're right, he's Dominican. It's never going to work. So it's fine. So, but even in that, I was separating from somebody I had been with for 10 years. It was all about, well, come to us and we'll take care of you. It was never, we'll come to you. And I started to see that very clearly. And so I was like, okay, I'm starting to see things here. But I was okay with it because I was like, this is how they show me love and this is how they're supporting me. As long as I'm going to them, they'll support me. So that was sort of the marriage started to end. Once the marriage started ending, I started looking at my career, and that's where it next started popping up, was sort of seeing in my career that I didn't believe in any of it. And this has a lot to do with qualifications and sort of what we consider official. These were people saying things very official, but behind the scenes doing very unofficial things. And I was a part of that. And it just got to the point where I had to make a decision. Stop complaining and go for it. This is going to be your life. You'll make a lot of money. Just stop complaining. Or get out. Be aligned. And I chose to get out, to leave. That was the beginning of it being shown in my family, because I spent a lot of money making sure that my family didn't have to pay for things. So if they needed things, I would always travel to them and make sure that they're okay. If, it was always, I would take care of it, or I would fix it with my resources so that you didn't need to be bothered. So when I left banking, it was more of a like, oh, this is a phase, you'll be back in 3 months. And it wasn't, they weren't too worried about it at the time. But that's when I started to see more and more that I didn't see love for what I was looking for. I saw love as a transaction. As long as you're doing these things, you get love. And by the way, these are our conditions, not your conditions, or not conditions of whatever I considered love. So they started getting really, really loud. It was also at that same time I started getting sick again. So about 6 months after I left finance or my career, my body just completely gave in, which I attribute to sort of 20 years of stress, but also not looking after myself when I went through the Lyme treatment. So at that point, my body just shut down. And I spent 6 months going to doctors in Manhattan, which I considered would be the best doctors, spending an enormous amount of money on these doctors. And all of them were like, we don't know what's wrong with you. We'll try this. Maybe they'll figure it out. And nobody could give me any answers. They were telling me it was depression. They were telling me that it was pre-cancer, that maybe, this is just stuff that we don't know about yet. So I wasn't getting any answers, but I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Again, nobody from my family offered to help me. It was always, well, come to us and take a break. Come and...
Hayley, how did the sickness manifest itself? What were you feeling?
The beginning was chronic fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, like, my body just wouldn't move out of bed. Like, my mind was like, we're getting up now. My body, there was a disconnect.
Huh.
And I think, that's very common for chronic fatigue, is that your body just gives out. Your mind wants to go, but the body's not there. So I needed, at the time, I was trying to sort of start my business as an entrepreneur consultant. But literally one morning of going out and trying to do work, I would be in bed for 2 days afterwards.
Mm.
So that was the beginning. And then I started putting on weight. I wasn't really eating, but I was putting on weight. And within sort of 6 months, I probably put on 20 pounds. And I couldn't, for me, I was just like, this doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. I'm exhausted. I'm not eating, but I'm putting on weight.
Huh.
My body also swelled, like all of my joints would swell. And I was just like, I don't know what this is about. So I was going and seeing doctors, and they were telling me, okay, this is depression. And I was like, it's not depression, because my mind wants to go. My mind wants to do these things, but the body's not there. I was doing blood tests, and the blood tests were completely all over the place. It was one day, it was, okay, this looks like you're pre-leukemia. Then it was, no, this is completely anemia and severe anemic reactions. So I was seeing doctors that were in completely different sort of trajectories, but all specialists in these very scary things where I was just like, at this point, if you tell me it's cancer, I'm okay with it because I just need to know. But they would go deeper into the cancer tests and there would be nothing. They would be like, no, this isn't cancer. So I spent sort of 6 months just getting sicker and sicker, not getting any answers, to the point where doctors were telling me, okay, if you don't try sort of radiation, we think it might be the thyroid and we need to radiate the thyroid. If you don't try that, you're literally going to be dead in a year. And none of that was helpful to me, but I was doing this alone. None of my family, when I would be like crying on the phone to them saying, I've got no answers, they would just be like, well, just come home and we'll take care of you. I'm like, that's not, like, I now have to pay for a ticket, get on a flight for 15 hours to come home, and then what? So it was very much still that thing of, come to us, we'll take care of this. So there was I didn't feel any help there, but still, it was, come and look after your nieces, or come to us and just hang out here and we'll take care of you. Other members of the family were calling me and saying, seems though you don't work anymore, can you come take care of our kids while we take a vacation? And seems though you're not feeling well, this will be relaxing for you. And, in my mind, I was like, how is taking care of 4 children relaxing? How is that my health? So I started seeing these things very clearly. And sort of that led up to one Christmas where I was at my sister's house. And it was, my sister, the way that I perceive things, and I very much understand that there will be other perspectives at play here. But my perspective of my sister's house is that she does everything because we have similar ideas of my value comes from everything I do. So she does everything in the house while her husband does very little. And at the time, they had a 2-year-old boy, and he was crying at the table while the dad was supposed to be feeding him. And my sister was running around trying to get food ready for the 2 older kids and for the adults. And the 2-year-old was crying, and he called out and said to my sister, you need to come and get your son because he needs his diaper changed. So I was like, you're right here, like, you go do it. And he's like, no, you do it. I'm like, I'm fine doing it, but this is ridiculous. You're not doing anything. So that was sort of the beginning. And of sort of me just not being able to keep my mouth shut. So, I said that this is ridiculous. You're not doing anything. So everything quieted down. We sat down. And sort of, I said, my sister was eating really quickly because she now had to get the 2-year-old into the bath so he could get to bed. So I said to her, like, slow down. Like, your husband's already finished eating. He can bath him. Oh, he doesn't bath him. I do. So I said, have you considered getting an au pair to come and help? And he said to the table, she does it all. We don't need any help. So I said to him, you could help. And he's like, you know me, I don't help. It's all on her. So I said, well, as long as that's agreed upon here, that's fine, but I'm not okay with it. I'm not agreeing to keep coming into this house just so that you can have a holiday. That was enough for my sister to tell me that I had no right coming into their house and saying such things. And that was the end, pretty much. The next morning was Christmas morning. It was made very clear, my sister made very clear that the next Christmas would just be her family, not me. And I sat there and I'm like, why am I here? Like, everybody's miserable that I'm here. I'm miserable that I'm here. So I changed my ticket and went back to New York. That was considered even more disrespectful. Mm-hmm. So, I went back to New York, and, my birthday was on December 31st. So I think I got back to New York on like the 26th of December, December 31st. My sister she called me, I think at 8 o'clock that night to say happy birthday. And I was just like, really? Like, that's it? that's what it takes for you to, like, I'm out. So that was sort of me taking a stand. And so that was a big separation between me and my sister, because I've always seen that she chooses other people over me, which is fine. But I never accepted it. I was just like, oh, that's fine. But this time I was like, no, you make your decision that this is the life that you want, and you're okay not me being in it. Go. It's fine. Obviously, that got to my parents' level. My parents told me that I need to apologize because my behavior was disrespectful. In addition, there were a few more other stories that came out over that night, meaning, like, apparently I threatened to beat the children. I threatened that the children were out of control. Keep in mind, these are, like, I was the primary, if anything happened to my sister, I was the primary caretaker. If she traveled to China for 2 weeks, I left my job, took vacation to go and take care of the kids, even though he was still home. So at that point, I was just like, you can't turn this into that I'm a monster just because you don't want to look at your life and say that maybe this is me too. So it started just turning into the snowball effect of, initially I disrespected and shouted at the husband. Then I shouted at the kids and threatened the kids. So they had to tell me to leave. I'm like, nobody told me to leave. I left on my own. So that was sort of the beginning of my parents taking my sister's side, and I needed to apologize, and I needed to take a look at my life, because obviously I was having a midlife crisis and I needed to get my stuff together and get back working. And at that point, I was just like, no, I can't even go back into working because I can't function for more than 2 days. And that's not what I wanted to do. So it started just snowballing to this effect where every time I spoke to him on the phone, they would yell at me and tell me basically what a bitch I was and how I was disrespectful and how dare I make these decisions. And I would just be like, and at the time I was in therapy and my therapist was saying, you need to hang up. If people speak to you like that way, you say, please don't speak to me that way. Please don't speak to me that way. And then hang up. So I would hang up. They would call back like 5 times. And I would be like, hello. And then be like, how, like all sorts of language. And I would hang up. So that's sort of, the calls, I wasn't speaking to them a whole lot. And I was doing more work on sort of the therapy side, the spiritual side, and getting more involved in sort of motivation. And I found this video that basically was by a motivational speaker called Prince EA. And it was about how I quit trying to be something for everybody else. And I'm going to spend my time figuring out who I am. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, this is my life right now. So I posted that video on Facebook. My sister saw the video, meaning she saw the title of the video, which was Dear Family and Friends, I Quit. She saw the title of that, sent a text to my parents saying, Hayley's quit the family, and she's done it through this message. So immediately, my parents called me, yelling at me. I was packing to go to Europe for a work speaking tour. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And they were like, how dare you quit? You posted this on social media. Everybody can see. How can you be so stupid? We raised you better than this. And I was like, it's a fantastic video. It's just about how I quit trying to be something that I'm not. And I'm going to start looking at myself here. They, to this day, have never seen the video. They have never accepted what the video is actually about. They have only seen the title and the fact that it was done by a Black man. And to them, that was sort of what they needed as proof that I had lost it and that I had this midlife crisis was just a complete mental break. And so they went to the entire family. And from that point, I stopped hearing from all of the family on both sides. And it hurt a lot. I was in therapy every single week, sometimes twice a week during that time, trying to figure out, okay, is it really me? Have I lost the plot? Do I need, to really get into some serious help here? But what I was actually finding in the therapy that I was doing, that this was just normal of sort of the family and the childhood that I had. And more validation for my behavior, and there was more validation for the way that they were behaving that showed me that this is not healthy at all. This is not a question about what do I need to do to get back in the fold. This was a question about why is it this way and how is this okay? Where is responsibility here? So, as much as they were saying you need to get mental help, I was getting mental help, and it was creating more distance because people were telling me, no, this is not healthy. Mm-hmm. And they were sort of validating my stories as, no, it's okay for you to be in this place. I was having sort of traditional psychiatry, traditional psychology, hypnotism, and as well as spiritual energetic healing at the same time. And all of them had exactly the same consistent message. You need to take care of yourself. You need to create distance. And, the phone calls were still continuing where I would pick up, I would get yelled at, sworn at, I would hang up. And it was a huge mental toll because I remember being so scared of what they were going to do to me. I was considering going to the police to get a restraining order, even though my parents lived in a different country. I was considering going to lawyers. I was considering, trying to tell my building, if these people show up, please know that they're not allowed in. I was trying to find all of these ways to protect myself. And my therapists at that point in time were saying, they will never go to those kind of ends. This is them manipulating so that they can keep control of you. It's never going to get to that point. And I remember them, 3 of them told me, they will never get to the point of going outside of you. They will always just come to you and try and beat you down. So that gave me sort of some level of comfort that I had some space. So, as time went on, more and more distance, the more that I learned about myself, the more that I got stronger in myself and got stronger in trusting myself that I will be okay. And that their words were not at all loving. Their words were not at all supportive. I was okay with time and distance between us. I was okay with no contact. I wasn't fostering it. I was okay with the rest of the family not wanting anything to do with me. I was okay with that. So time went by and just less and less and less contact. But, the 1 or 2 times a year that I would speak to my mum, it was always, how are you? I'm okay. How are you? And it would be an hour about how terrible her life is and all the help that she needs. And could I send money? And I would have to explain that I spent all my money. All of the money that I had saved after my career in finance went into my 2 years of my health. I had to pay for that all outside of insurance because I wasn't in any kind of insurance care, and all of the help that I was getting was not through insurance. To them, that was a lie. To this day, they still believe that I have an enormous amount of money that I refuse to help them with. And so I started to see that their tactic changed from we're mad at you and we need to yell at you to now we need money. So we're only going to call you when we need money. So initially it was my mum who would get in touch with me, and her words were always, how are you? It always start very lovingly. And then it would go into, don't you think it's time you got over this and actually helped us out? It's not all on your sister to help us and you need to give a damn here. And I was just like, this is the same thing. It's the same. So once I realized from her that nothing was changing, I sort of, told her, I was like, if you want a relationship with me, it has to be because it's me. Not because there's money, not because you need something. It's because you want a relationship with me, with or without money. That was considered a very disrespectful message.
Hmm.
So then my dad started reaching out and saying, how dare you speak to your mother like that? She's your mother. And, you know, their tactic has always been, we gave you life, so you owe us. And I don't believe that. No core of me believes that that's a parent-child relationship. So I started the same thing with him, saying, if you contact me, it has to be in love. You have to ask me, how am I? And support me, and I will do. But please know that even if you contact me, I still don't have money to give. I can't support you. That has never been heard. It has always been received with, that's so disrespectful. Who do you think you are?
Hmm.
So there's just been, you know, I blocked him after, you know, several messages where he's the kind of person that if you engage with him, he just goes and goes and goes. So you never get to actually explain yourself because that's just more ammunition for him to fire at you with. So I again was seeking therapy, and you know, it was very much, you need to start building up the courage to either stop this and block it or accept that this is what your life is going to be. This is the relationship. For my own mental health, for my own life that I'm building, it was needed to block him. So I blocked him from my phone. And so initially I just blocked him on text. I didn't block him on WhatsApp. He got the message that he had been blocked and found me on WhatsApp, found my Mexican number and WhatsApped me saying, how dare you block me? Who do you think you are? And I blocked him on WhatsApp, so I didn't hear anything. And a few months later, he reached out to you and sent you an email. And when you sent me that message, like everything stopped. Like my heart stopped, my breath stopped. I literally, it's one of those moments where you have such deep fear that everything stops. Like the clock stopped. Everything stops. And I was just like, what is going on here? And initially my response was, he's doing what all the therapists promised would never happen. We're reaching a whole new level now of this toxicity and this sort of cat and mouse game. That was my initial reaction. My second reaction was so deeply embarrassed that you were now being pulled into something that you had nothing to do with. You've never met my father. You've never met my family. So just by your association of me, you were getting pulled into this. And I felt deeply humiliated and terrible that just because you knew me, you were now embroiled in this. And then I sort of sat with it for a bit and I was like, all right, that's the worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? Mm-hmm. And honestly, you know, what I arrived to was that you're probably the best person in the world to get that kind of message from my father. Mm-hmm. Because when we talk about qualifications, you are probably the best qualified person outside of my actual therapists to be able to respond to that kind of person.
Yeah,
so I allowed me the breathing room to be like, okay, maybe this is meant to be.
And Hayley, you know that probably 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even I would have put on my white hat and try to ride in and make everybody happy, you know, save the day. And I know from life experience, don't get, you know, first of all, where's your loyalty? Does what's being said make any sense to you? And the way out of this, if you really want to get out of this mess, is to listen and not interrupt, and then have you say, okay, now I'm not going to interrupt. Tell me your feelings about this and without trigger words, without unloving words. That's the rule here. it has to be loving. If it's not loving, don't say it. All because you're, as soon as you create fear in the other person, a wall goes up, right?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and I don't know your folks. All I know is that your dad didn't um, think that that was a good way to do it, or we've already tried that, I think. But I'm really happy they wrote me. I was surprised by it, but I'm glad. And I told your dad, I'm glad you felt you could reach out to me. I want everyone to feel that they can reach out to me, and if I can be of any help, I'd love to do it. But I've learned through life about boundaries, and Hayley, I was coincidentally, I've been working on my column this week, and it's about growing into your own skin. And it feels to me that that was what was going on, is that, and it's not an instant process,
No.
but you've been going through the process of growing into your own skin, which really means I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm not competing with anybody. I don't need to win anything, because I have all that I need. And if you'd like to be a part of my life, right? These are the rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the rules for me is loving kindness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's loving kindness. I consider my Facebook, and I've said this, I consider my Facebook page my treehouse. And if people want to climb the ladder and get in, they need to read the rules
Read the
first.
rules.
Read the rules, because I'm serious. I don't, I won't throw you. I'll just
You'll just be hanging outside for a very long time until you go.
I will help you down the ladder, and then I'll go back up and get into my space. I don't know how much time I have. You have no idea
I have no
how much
idea.
you've already thought through. Okay, if mother dies from whatever, and when dad dies from whatever, I know that I'm going to have mixed feelings, because you can't not have, feelings of, you're going to feel loss, but that does not mean that this is the time to beat yourself up because you were a strong person who was not controllable.
Right. And, as I was saying, there's like the worst case scenario part of this, but equally there's the best case scenario. And sort of the timing of this is so interesting, because I think that was a Friday morning that you shared, or that I read, because it happened on Thursday night. And then Friday morning, I saw your email to me and sort of had this moment of like, oh, and then sort of gently pulled myself into best case scenario, like, okay, Brian is actually the best person to be receiving this. It's okay. And then I looked at, all right, where are you? Get present with your life right now. What's actually happening in your life? Does it reflect the worst case scenario, or does it reflect the best case scenario? And it just so happened, synchronicity of timing and miracles, that Friday morning, that Friday afternoon, my boyfriend's mother was making the effort to travel 2 hours to come and meet me. So she came in on Friday. She was staying with us solely to meet me. And then on Saturday, the rest of the family, 5 more people, traveled 2 hours to come and meet me. And I just had a moment of sitting there going like, here's on one side, one person who is my family that is telling me, if you want to come into my treehouse, these are my rules. And the way, it's not an invite, you are demanded and you shall turn up. you have been sort of commanded to return. On the other hand, there's a family that's making the effort to welcome you. And literally, I'd never met these people, and every single one of them hugged me with smiles. And there was an official moment of, we're so happy to welcome you into our family. And for me, it was just, again, that very stark be present. Be present where you are now and be present in what's happening. Let that be the truth. And I just had a moment of like, everything's going to be okay. Pay attention to where love is.
Yes. And, what's funny is that earlier you gave the example of your folks not coming to you, not traveling to be with you when you were sick, but saying, if you get on a plane and come to us, then we'll, work on it. But in this instance, and I didn't know, Hayley, that you were so seriously involved with a dude.
Let me tell you, it's been a journey. It's been a
Yeah.
very big journey about family.
Yeah. And I bet, knowing you, through these conversations, that there's a part of you that does not, no rider is going to get on you without without getting bucked off. So there's a part of you, I'm sure, that feels like, I can't grab 2 suitcases anymore and run out the door because I have a family now that's, and I can leave, but I really owe it to all of them to go to them and explain why, you need.
It's been a journey on crack, basically, because, in December, I have, since this situation with my blood family, made the decision, no more birthdays, no more Christmases, no more New Year's. They're my days, solely for me, because I don't want any drama. So, this Christmas, I did have a boyfriend, and he was like, oh, you're not doing anything. Come with me to my family. And at that point, we were sitting at this lovely shop that does the best hot chocolate and a banana cardamom bread. And I said to him, let me tell you something. You will never have to worry about meeting my family, and you will never have to worry about me meeting your family, because it's not going to happen. And I felt him at that point, just like completely shut down, and I felt awful. And I was just like, like, when somebody shuts down and the air is like pulled out of your lungs. And I was just like, I think we're going to have a growing moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has been sort of between December and March, a very sort of fast lesson in being present with love. And I asked for this because my intention for 2024 was to experience my soul through the eyes of love. So every lesson since then has been, there's a worst case scenario, and you can go through this as you're patterned to. Or you can choose love. Which way do you want to learn?
Is this the same, the guy at Christmas, is he the same one whose family came to be? Yeah, okay. So even though the air got sucked out of him with you saying what you said, you have moved on, and he has a better understanding of why you feel the way you do. And if he doesn't, he can watch this.
And I know it takes an exceptional man to be in my life. He is an exceptional man, and sort of the beginning of our relationship was very slow. It took a good 5 months for us to be sort of, okay, we're together, without labels, because I don't do any labels. It's just easier to call him my boyfriend now, but right now we're just love. I call him my love, he calls me his love. But it took 5 months for us to kind of find a place where we're like, okay, listen, this is actually happening between the two of us, so can we just relax? Because I was the red flag. I was the one checking every single thing that he did and going like, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
That's not right. And every single time he's proved that I'm the red flag. I've had to eat a big slice of humble pie and just be like, okay, I asked for this. I asked for this man. I asked for a lesson of love. Let me receive the lesson of love.
I'm, my first impulse is to say how happy I am for you.
Thank
But
you.
I was happy for you when you weren't involved with anybody. I so enjoy you. And now what makes me happy is that you have decided that you want to open up your heart and 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 have him do the same. And the two of you are, each of your angels are dancing together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wonderful. And I'm really happy,
Thank you.
Hayley, that you have that experience. Um, which suggests to me that never again will there only be one apple in the refrigerator.
Right now, I'm happy to tell you that there are three, and
Yeah,
said man is at the market right now refilling. So,
yeah, yeah. For those of you who not don't know what I'm talking about, Hayley described at one point that she had nothing. She was living in a strange place. She didn't even have money to buy groceries, and she had one apple in the refrigerator. And that apple was enough to give her the security that she'd be okay. You know?
and I mean, that security wasn't just to let me breathe and be in peace. That security was me on my knees praying to God, saying, God, this is my last apple. Where are we going?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need a sign.
Well, at
That
least
afternoon, I got a client.
this morning I was looking at the bougainvillea uh, in our yard, and it's extraordinary. I mean, it's just if you walked in, it would take your breath
They're
away.
stunning right now.
It's March is the month here for all the bougainvillea to show
It's
off.
the same here.
And,
They're stunning.
and so I was looking at it, and I said to Ray, I'm feeling a little sad because I know that the flowers are going to drop. And he said, be in the moment, enjoy what you see. And he was so right. you know, don't be thinking about tomorrow. Enjoy this apple today. And it may
It's
be the best tasting apple you have ever had.
I was having the same thought yesterday, um, because I'm sure we could go on for 2 hours today, but this week we're traveling. So yesterday we got back from actually going to his home and celebrating a birthday with his family, and we're going back on Saturday. But sort of having a moment of sitting with faith while I was traveling home and kind of trying to be like, all right, when we have those moments of looking at the flowers and having sort of that despair of this is going to end, it's the
Mm,
thing that we have to relax into and know that the end is the beginning of a new cycle. So
yeah,
you need those flowers to drop so you can see a new set of flowers.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think, I was sitting with the word faith, and in Spanish it's fe, F-E. And I was sitting with that yesterday, just going like, how lucky am I that I have the soul or the awareness, whatever it is, to latch onto faith.
Mhm. Do you feel that you've grown into your own skin?
Yes. And I
I
can
feel
enjoy it now. I can enjoy
that,
it.
that you know who Hayley is,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, you're comfortable uh, with limitations, if there happen to be any. You don't feel the need to compete with anybody else. It's just about you. And that doesn't mean you don't bring yourself fully to a relationship, but you do it as a person who loves herself.
Absolutely. And we talk about the Tao, and every day it's just trying to be better at being me. Because if
Yeah,
I'm better at being me, the people that are close to me benefit. They get the best version of me. They get love. And that's
yeah,
all like at this point in my life is that I want to see things through love. I want to experience things through love. And I do believe I have faith that in my intention of seeing and experiencing things through love, I radiate love, and everybody that comes towards me feels that love.
I
And,
agree.
even if my father sends you messages or sends me messages, every single time he sends a message, he receives love back. It may not be the love that he is looking for or the outcome that he is looking for, but it's consistently love. And that
Yeah,
has been sort of, you know, my saving grace mentally is that as long as can be consistent in my message, if you want to be in my life, approach me with love. I'm not saying this from a place of anger. I'm not saying this from a place of being a dictator. I'm saying this from a person who respects love.
hmm
You will always
and
get love as long as you are coming towards me with love.
yeah, I want to thank you for being so open and sharing so personally
Thank you.
uh, with me today. If you decide you don't want to, put this up,
No,
then
I
fine.
think, as part of growing into your skin and getting to a place where you love yourself, you don't need, like, I don't feel like I need to explain or be afraid anymore. Of course, there's moments that still trigger because still human, still learning, but it's my perspective. I allow that there are many different perspectives out there, but this is my perspective.
Yes,
This is
yeah,
my story. This is my truth.
and you've survived
Yeah,
and thrived,
good.
survived and thrived.
I
You
have
sur-
5 apples, people.
yeah, well, you survived your sickness. Which I don't know how you got better, but in terms of 2 days of exhaustion after one day of activity, but you survived it,
Mm-hmm.
and you've created a life for yourself that you love, and in the process you've met somebody who
And
you're
hopefully,
gonna who you're gonna walk the path with. Uh,
I
as long
life,
as you both go ahead, huh?
I was just going to say, life is, just being present with the crew that I walk with. I
Yeah,
walk with you. I walk with my dear sisters and my hearts that are in different people. I walk with them, and I look to my side and I'm in love with who's by my side. And I'm in love with the experience that we're all interacting with and we're all talking about because we're all talking about it joyfully. Even though
yeah,
some of it is just really hard and gut wrenching, we're still talking about it with faith and with love.
with love, and you were able to spend this time talking, sharing your journey because you're confident in your love for yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't stumble through with nervousness about exposing a weakness. You talked from strength, which is wonderful.
Thank you. A lot of work.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a lot.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Time's up, isn't
Time's up. It goes awfully quickly. But
it?
thank
And
you for this opportunity and a deep, heartful thank
yeah,
you for being that wonderful person, that beacon of love for this moment with, my father. And, when we talk about karmic contracts and why is this person in my love, in my life, and it is my love, I think that was another example of why it's so important that we pay attention to the people that are in our lives and let them
yeah,
know that I love you and I'm grateful, and you are a privilege.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that myself.
It is a privilege, and I'm deeply grateful for all of the forces that conspired and synchronized together that you and I get to speak today.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next conversation we have.
Yes, 2 weeks.
Yeah, we may or
We're
may not.
having some amazing conversations.
Oh, we did. Listen, the last one, with, father, daughter, all kinds of people, wanted to see that.
Yeah, I
Transgender,
loved it.
they were great.
And
And
I loved that throughout that entire call, pretty much every one of us had a huge smile.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't have time to keep talking, but
Lots of
we'll
love
do
to you. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of the Bougainvilleas,
you
and we'll
and
talk soon.
enjoy your dude.
Thank you. Lots of love. Bye.
Lots of love. Bye bye.